Hello, I'm Bert Oliver, and welcome to Bowie News and Views. Today, my co-host, co-producer John Ross will introduce our guest.
Well, it's a pleasure for me to have a friend of a shorter period of time, actually, than I thought it was. Bowie's favorite clergyman, according to Aunt Agatha, who says, you can't dispute Aunt Agatha. Rabbi Steve Weissman.
Pleasure to be here.
And it's a pleasure to have you here, and I understand, and I could have sworn that you've been here a heck of a lot longer than 10 years, but it is...
Yeah, time flies when you're having fun.
Okay, tell us about the fun. How's your 10 years been?
It'll be 10 years this August, actually, officially. It's been an eye-opener. It really has. I knew about Bowie a little bit when I got here.
You came down from Connecticut?
Came down from Connecticut. I had spent 9 years in Fredericksburg, Virginia when I first started out.
Okay.
So the Mid-Atlantic region was familiar to me. The folks up here in Bowie were familiar from programming we'd done together.
Yeah.
Rabbi Michael Kramer, my predecessor, had been a colleague and friend. And when I saw that he was leaving, my first phone call was, is everything okay? Mm-hmm. My second call was, what are they looking for?
Yeah.
And it turned out to have been a good call.
And little did they know they'd get such a sartorial, splendid rabbi.
I dressed just for you today because I figured we had to give you something to comment on.
First thing you would have commented on.
Absolutely.
You have town. No.
No, it's been a remarkable 10 years with a congregation in an area that isn't really growing Jewishly as Prince George's County and Bowie certainly aren't.
Synagogue.
We lost Nevi Shalom now a year and a half, 2 years ago, leaving me again as chief rabbi by default.
Yeah.
Not a title I wanted, but somebody's got to do it. But I think there's still tremendous potential here. We are fortunate to draw from a rather large geographic area that is at least staying stable, including...
But you are a Reformed Jewish congregation.
We are a Reformed Jewish congregation.
Liberals.
Yeah, Reform would be the liberal branch of Judaism, but I think, as you know from our 10 years of yakking together,
yeah.
I tend to be, in a lot of ways, much more of a moderate than a liberal on most things.
Yeah.
Certainly a traditionalist within the Reform movement, which makes me somewhat of an odd egg.
Yeah.
But it's worked very well for me in terms of getting me through the first half century of my life, in terms of making sense of this craziness we call the world.
Yeah, isn't that the truth? It's a very challenging world we live in.
It is, and one of the things I've loved about this decade is the closeness of this community and the opportunities that exist here to get people together to do good.
Do you think it's as close as it was when you came here 10 years ago? I see changes.
I know you see changes. I know I've seen changes. It's probably easier for you to judge what the changes are from when I first got here.
Yeah.
Because when I first got here, I was getting used to what it was.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I had no idea what it had been at that point. I got here, and it was not long after I got here that we had the Washington Post story, followed by the Wall Street Journal story.
Yeah, I know.
So there were already people trying to tell us who we were by that point.
Which is annoying.
What I found working with the clergy is an incredible bunch of people in an incredible bunch of houses of worship all over this community.
Yeah.
That basically, when the chips are down and the community needs something, more often than not are going to find the way to pull together and be there. Whether it's something as mundane and everyday as the Bowie Interfaith Rec Council and the good work they do, or whether it's something as outrageous as what we attempted to do 5 years ago in response to the tsunami, and again this year in terms of Haiti, in terms of getting the community together and effectively doing a variation on Live Aid, Bowie style, which was, how often do you get to do that?
Man,
it sounds like you already crammed a lot of experience in a short period of time, Steve. When did you decide to go into the...
into the rabbinate? Probably, I was leaning towards it as I was graduating high school. Went off to college. I wasn't sure whether I wanted to be an attorney or a rabbi. Majored in politics.
What a difference.
Yes and no.
Oh, okay.
Yes, and having the degree in politics has actually been really helpful in terms of understanding how the congregation works and how individual people think and how to deal with them.
So you had...
I went off to Brandeis, majored in politics and decided I wasn't going to be an attorney. Went off to Hebrew Union College, Jewish Institute of Religion in New York, spent a year in Israel. It's a 5-year program, and was ordained in 1991 out of the New York campus.
God, you're just a kid.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I turned 50 this year. I need that.
I remember 50 vaguely.
You haven't returned to Israel since that?
Actually, I have. Been there several times. Was there when Lauren and I first got married on our honeymoon.
Yes.
Because we realized it was probably going to be our first and last chance to go without a congregation or with kids with us.
Did you take her into the Dead Sea and float around?
Yeah, she floated on the Dead Sea. I watched. I'd been there and done it. Actually had the privilege of taking a congregational group about 4 years ago, which was the first time I'd been back in a while, and marveled at how the country has grown, as I always did between trips, but even more so on this trip.
Well, you're speaking of Israel. I'm going to ask you, I'm going to ask you this
I knew
question.
you would.
But is there any hope on this earth that this Palestinian-Israeli situation will ever be resolved?
We're talking to the public, so I've got to say yes.
Okay.
Because to not be able to say yes is to give up.
Yeah, well, I
do
admire that. Yeah.
Yeah, the question
Even
is,
though you did cloak it.
yeah, if you're going to ask me to put a percentage on it,
Yeah.
Especially with what's gone on the last couple of months, I'm not going to be terribly sanguine about it happening anytime soon.
Yeah.
There's so many levels that we in this country do not understand, the majority of us. And that includes a lot of the folks in Washington who we trust to handle this stuff sometimes.
Yeah.
In terms of how to talk to both sides in this struggle, that it's so easy to put a foot wrong.
I know.
And this recent blow up between the Obama administration and Netanyahu.
Well, Netanyahu is not easy.
He wasn't easy the first time.
No, he wasn't.
I think we in America probably understand him better than most of the rest because he's really one of us.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
The Prime Minister of Pennsylvania, where he lived for too many years. But he was trained here. But he's taken what he learned here and taken it back into, the rule of the bazaar. And you can spell that either way and it'll work just as well. Applies equally on both sides and understanding this.
I agree.
There's a part of me that believes him when he says that he didn't know that the 1,600 apartments were going to be announced and when it was, and Biden was going to be embarrassed. And that to me is the worst possibility because he might really not have known.
No, that's ineptitude.
Yeah. We didn't do a terribly good job on this side, I don't think, responding to it publicly. I think we could have done what we did privately and kept it quiet.
An awful lot of people are dying over there.
They are. They're
on both sides, but more so on the Palestinian side.
They are. And I'd like to sit here and defend Israel's military because for the better part of 62 years, they have held themselves to a standard that nobody else in the world needs to
I agree
or
with
does.
that, but I don't think they have over the last several years.
There's way too much evidence that there's been slippage there too.
Yeah.
I just lost a dear friend this week, Rabbi David Foreman, who most of your listeners have never heard of, who in the 60s was an anti-war demonstrator when he was in college in this
country. He's in my generation.
He's of your generation. But instead of, when the 70s turning his attention, as everybody else did, to what can we do to make America right, decided that even though he was just ordained as a Reform rabbi, he was going to move to Israel and continue to fight the battle for equal rights and civil rights there, which in the early 70s when he went over was just an absurdist statement because he had no standing whatsoever in that society.
No.
This is a guy who went on to run for Knesset and almost get a seat, who ran our North American Federation of Temple youth programs there for close to 20 years and trained an entire generation of kids to love Israel with ethics.
Yeah.
Wow.
Was the founder of a group called Rabbis for Human Rights, which is the leading group reporting within Israel on outrages when they exist against the Palestinians.
That's the newspaper.
Yeah. So it's, here's a guy who was always willing to speak truth to.
Yeah, but there are a lot of them. Israeli society is full of liberal, well-educated, and compassionate people. It's the politicians who are causing most of this, and the fanatic settlers.
Again, judge any group by their extremists, and we're going to lose.
Exactly.
The challenge to understanding Israeli government is recognizing that it's a democracy, but it's not an American-style democracy.
Yeah.
As you and I have talked about many times, it's a British-style democracy because that's what they knew.